Come with me tonight. I want to tell you about a river I walked almost every evening for 3 weeks in Kyoto in early summer. You don't need to do anything. Let your breathing slow down if you'd like. There's no rhythm to keep. The river is called the Kamo, and it runs straight down the middle of the city, north to south, with a walking path along both banks the whole way. That's all it is. There's no famous temple on it, nothing you'd fly across the world to see. I ended up there every night anyway. Start with me at the top, where 2 rivers meet. They come down out of the hills separately and join here at a shallow point, and the land between them narrows to a grassy triangle that everyone just calls the Delta. The water is only ankle deep at the join. You can see the stones on the bottom. There are stepping stones across both branches. Big, flat blocks of granite set into the current. Some carved as turtles, one as a bird with its wings folded back. Children spend the whole day jumping between them. By this hour, the stones are empty, and the water sounds different around them than it does anywhere else on the river, breaking and rejoining in small, quick sounds. Hundreds of them, all slightly out of time. Come sit on the grass with me. It's still warm from the day and slightly damp underneath. And it smells green in that specific way that grass only smells at night after a hot afternoon. I came here first because someone told me it was where students go. That's true, but only until about 11. After that, it belongs to whoever's left. A few people asleep, sitting up with their backs against the bank. Someone doing slow stretches at the water's edge. And once, memorably, a man practicing what I think was a wind instrument, badly, at a volume that suggested he was fairly sure nobody could hear him. He was wrong about that. I could hear him from the far bank. I never let on. Listen to the 2 rivers with me. If you sit right at the point where they meet, you can hear both at once. The west branch is faster and higher, coming down over more stones. The east one is slower and deeper. They don't blend into one sound. They stay separate the whole time, like 2 people talking at once, who aren't listening to each other, but somehow aren't arguing either. The hills are close on 3 sides here, dark against a sky that never fully goes black in early summer. And there's a mountain to the northeast with a shape burned into its side. A huge character cut into the trees that they light on fire one night every August. Tonight, it's just a slightly different texture of dark. Most nights of the year it is. Come on, downstream from here, the banks get properly built up, and the path starts, and the city closes in on both sides. Somewhere below the delta, the banks change. The grass gives way to a proper stone embankment and a paved path, and steps down to the water every 100 meters or so. And then you notice the thing everyone notices here eventually, usually a few seconds after they've walked past several without registering it. People sit along the west bank at almost exactly equal intervals. Not organized, not marked. Nobody assigning anything. Just couples, mostly. And some people alone, sitting on the embankment, facing the water. And the space between each pair is close to identical the whole way down. Maybe 6 meters, maybe 7. It holds for hundreds of meters, past bridges, around the slight bends. I noticed it on my second night, and then couldn't stop noticing it. I walked the whole stretch, counting once. The gaps were never exactly the same, but they were never very different either. Nobody's doing it deliberately. That's what I find remarkable. Each person arrives, looks at where everyone else is sitting, and puts themselves in the biggest available gap. And the result of everyone doing that independently all evening is this: 100 private decisions adding up to something that looks planned from above. Come sit with me in a gap of our own. There's usually one if you walk far enough. The stone is warm and gritty and slopes very slightly toward the water, which is close enough that you could reach it, and moving fast enough to make a continuous sound rather than individual ones. Listen to what's around us. Whatever the couple on our left is saying, we can't make out a word of it. The river takes it. Same in the other direction. I think that's the whole point of the 6 meters. It's the distance at which you can see everyone and hear no one. A heron stands in the shallows a little downstream, completely still the way they do. It didn't move once the whole time I sat there. On my last night in the city, I saw it again, or one exactly like it, in exactly the same place. The restaurants start along the east bank, and in summer, they do something you don't see anywhere else. They build platforms out over the river, wooden decks on stilts, extending from the back of each building right out above the water, floor to floor, all the way along this stretch. They go up in May and come down in September. You eat dinner suspended over a running river, several meters above it, with the current moving underneath you the whole time. Come along the west bank with me, where you can see the whole row of them at once. They're lit with paper lanterns, 1 string per platform, and the light is that warm, dull orange that paper does to light. Nothing bright enough to read by. From here, you can see maybe 30 of these decks at various heights, all lit the same way, stacked along the bank like the world's most patient audience. Look at the reflections with me. The river is moving fast enough that the lantern light doesn't reflect properly. It breaks up completely into hundreds of small orange fragments that reassemble and scatter again constantly. The whole surface of the water between us and them is orange and moving. It never resolves into anything. You can watch it for a long time. The sound from up there arrives as a general hum. Cutlery and glasses, and dozens of separate conversations, all of it softened by distance and by the river underneath. You can't pick out a single voice. Occasionally, somebody laughs loudly enough to carry. I never ate on one. They're expensive, and you need to book. And honestly, I liked them better from here. From up there, you'd have the food and the company and the river underneath you. From here, you get all 30 at once, and the broken orange water, and the sound of everyone else's evening arriving from across the current. Come on. The bridge ahead is the busiest place on the whole river. Every city has one bridge that everybody uses, and this is it. Come up onto it with me. It's wide and flat, and honestly, not very beautiful. 1930s concrete with ornamental lamps that are trying harder than the bridge is. But the whole city funnels across it. Shops on one side of the river, entertainment on the other. And this is the crossing between them. At 11 at night, it's still full. Not crowded, but continuous. People going both ways. In the loose, unhurried way people move when they're not commuting. Come lean on the railing at the middle with me and look north, back the way we came. This is the view. The river running straight away from you between its stone banks. The lantern-lit platforms stacked along the right side. The hills black at the far end of it, and the water carrying broken orange light the whole length of the shot. On my first night here, I stood at this exact spot for probably 15 minutes without moving. And I don't think I was the only one. There's a young man who plays guitar at the East End most nights, with a small amp and an open case. And he's good. Properly good. The kind of good where people actually stop. He never spoke to the crowd once in 3 weeks. Just played and nodded when people put money in and started the next one. Listen from here. The music comes and goes as people pass between us and him. Under it, traffic on the bridge. Cars, but mostly bicycles. A lot of bicycles. The whir of them constant. And under all of that, if you tune everything else out, the river. The train station's over that way, a few blocks east, and there's a steady flow of people coming from it. Day trippers heading back to Osaka, workers coming home, girls in yukata in early summer, walking carefully in wooden sandals that were not designed for walking quickly. I crossed this bridge probably 40 times in 3 weeks. It never got old, which surprised me because nothing about it is spectacular. Come on, there's an alley just off the far end that's a meter wide, and it's the best street in the city. The entrance is easy to miss. A gap between two buildings, a small stone marker, a lantern. Come in with me. The alley runs parallel to the river for about 500 meters, and it's roughly 1.5 meters wide the whole way. 2 people can pass. 3 is a negotiation. Look up first. You can see a strip of sky directly overhead. That's it. Everything else is buildings, 2 and 3 stories, wooden fronts, and every single one of them is a restaurant or a bar or something in between. Lanterns hang at intervals, red and white. Most of them just numbers or a family name. Feel how the air changes in here. It's warmer than the riverbank and completely still. No wind gets down here, and it holds everything. Charcoal smoke, dashi, someone's cigarette from further along, the particular smell of very old wood that's been washed down every evening for 100 years. The sound is different too. No river, just voices from behind doors, and footsteps on stone, and doors sliding open and shut. That specific wooden rattle, over and over, all along the alley. Most of the doorways tell you nothing. A wooden door, a cloth curtain, a small sign in characters. No menu, no prices, no window. You are simply expected to know. I looked into exactly one of them on my last night and immediately understood that I was in the wrong place. 6 seats, all taken. Everyone clearly a regular. A chef who looked up with a politeness so total it was its own kind of answer. I apologized in the 2 words of Japanese I had and slid the door shut and stood in the alley feeling completely fine about it. Watch the puddles as we go. Even in dry weather, there's always water on these stones because everyone hoses down their entrance at some point in the evening, and the lanterns get into the wet patches, and the whole alley has these small red and white pools in it that weren't there an hour ago. Come out the far end with me. The river's right there again, and it's suddenly very loud after all that. South of the bridge, the platforms end, and within 200 meters, the crowd is gone. Come down onto the path with me. It's lower here, closer to the water, and the embankment walls are higher on both sides, so the city noise drops away almost completely. The lighting changes too. Fewer lamps, spaced further apart. And they're the low kind that throw light down onto the path rather than out. Between them, it's properly dark. There's a weir across the river along this stretch. A low concrete step the whole width of the water, maybe half a meter high. The river goes over it in a continuous sheet and lands in a permanent white line of turbulence. And the sound is louder than anything upstream. Not a splash, a constant, heavy rush that you hear from a long way off, and that gets steadily louder as you approach, and then stays with you for a while after you pass. Stand at the rail above it with me for a minute. Close your eyes if you want. It's the only place on the whole river where the water is the only thing you can hear. Further down, a small park where the path widens. There are gym machines here, the outdoor kind, and a covered bench, and a vending machine glowing under the trees, which in this country is completely normal and never stopped surprising me. The middle of a dark riverside park at midnight, and there's a lit box selling hot and cold drinks, working perfectly. Nobody attending it, nobody stealing it. I bought something from it most nights, not because I wanted it particularly, because it was there, and it was warm in the hand, and it made the walk feel like it had a purchase in it. Listen out here. The Weir behind us still. Insects in early summer quite loud. A train somewhere east, one of the private lines, 3 or 4 carriages. The sound arriving and passing and thinning out. It rained properly on my 11th night, and I went out anyway, and the river was a different river. Come with me under an umbrella. Cheap plastic, bought from a convenience store for about 500 yen. The same one everybody in this country seems to own. You see hundreds of them on a wet night, all identical, all transparent. The first thing is the banks, completely empty. Not a single person sitting on the west side, the whole length of it. 3 hours earlier, there would have been 40 couples spaced out along there. Rain clears them out entirely, and the stone looks wrong without them, like a room with the furniture taken away. The platforms are shut too. In heavy rain, the restaurants don't open them. The tables come in, the lanterns go off, and 30 decks that were full of people last night are dark wooden shapes hanging over the water with rain coming down on them. Feel the temperature. It drops fast when it rains here in early summer, and the humidity that's been sitting on the city all day finally has somewhere to go. Everything smells like wet stone and wet leaves, and faintly drains. Listen with me, because this is the part I came out for. The river is louder. It's been raining in the hills north of the city for hours, and all of that is arriving now. So the water is higher and browner and moving considerably faster. The Weir downstream is a roar rather than a rush, and the rain on the water, you can't really hear it separately, but but you can see it. Thousands of small impacts on the surface, constantly, all the way across. Rain on the umbrella above me is the loudest thing of all. A steady drumming close to my ears. And it does something I liked very much. It puts a small, private room around you. Everything outside it is dimmed and blurred. You're standing in the middle of a city, and you can hear almost nothing except your own small roof. There's one couple out, sharing an umbrella, walking rather than sitting, further along the path. Nobody else at all. I stood under a bridge for a while to get out of it. The rain came off the edge of the bridge deck in an unbroken sheet on both sides. You're in a dry corridor with water falling in front of you and behind you, and the river running past below. Somebody had left a bicycle down there, out of the wet, which suggested this is a known spot. The stepping stones up at the delta would be underwater by now. I thought about walking up to check, and didn't. And I'm still slightly sorry about that. Come on, let's walk in it a while longer. Nothing out here is going to get any wetter than it already is. Cross with me at the next bridge. The east bank is a different walk. There's no path down at water level here for a stretch, so you're up on the street. And the street is narrow and residential, and almost completely dark. Houses with wooden fronts and lattice screens over the windows. Some of them very old, all of them very close to the road. Come along this bit slowly. The light comes from a few street lamps, and more often from inside. A lit window behind a lattice, a lantern by a doorway, the blue flicker of somebody's television through a gap in a curtain. There are bicycles parked outside every house, unlocked most of them, sometimes 3 or 4 in a row. Umbrellas in buckets by the doors. A cat sitting in the middle of the road who moved when I got close, but not quickly and not far. I liked this stretch because nothing about it was for me. The river path is public in a way that expects you. These streets are just where people live, and walking through them at midnight felt like being allowed somewhere by accident. Listen, almost nothing. A television, muffled, then gone. Somebody's air conditioning unit. Very occasionally, a scooter 2 streets over. There's a temple gate along here that's shut for the night, and behind it, a lantern lit in a courtyard you can't see into. It's on a timer, probably, but it does what it's meant to do, which is suggest that somebody's still awake in there. At the end of the street, an alley cuts back down toward the water, and the sound of the river comes up to meet you again. By midnight, the river has changed hands. Come back down to the path with me. The couples are gone. Not gradually. They just aren't there anymore. and the 6-meter spacing along the west bank has become an empty stone bank with nobody on it at all. What's left is a different set of people entirely. Delivery riders cut along the path as a shortcut. Fast, lights on. A man walks a dog that clearly runs the household. Somebody's out running, properly running. The kind of pace that means they do this every night and have for years. And the crows. There are a lot of crows in this city, and they're big. And after midnight, they own the riverbank. They walk rather than hop along the path, unbothered, moving aside at the last possible second. One of them was working on something it had found near a bin and gave me a look as I passed that I would describe as territorial. The restaurant platforms above us are being taken apart for the night. Chairs stacked, lanterns off one by one along the row. Staff carrying things back inside through the sliding doors. It happens in the same order every night, north to south, over about 20 minutes. I watched the whole sequence once, sitting on the far bank, without meaning to. Listen to what's left. The river, louder now that everything else is quieter. A shutter coming down somewhere behind the buildings. Bicycle tires on wet stone. Feel how much cooler it's got. Early summer nights in this city are humid until they suddenly aren't. And it usually happens right about now. There's one more bridge I want to show you before we stop. It's small and old and much lower than the others. You're close to the water crossing it. It's wooden on top with stone piers, and it doesn't carry cars, just people and bicycles being pushed rather than ridden. Come to the middle with me and stop. From here, you can see north up the whole stretch we walked. Almost all the platform lanterns are out now. The bridge lights are on, but there's nobody crossing. The stone banks on both sides are completely empty, which, after 3 hours of watching people sit on them at even intervals, looks genuinely strange. Like a theater after everyone's gone. The Herons still down there. Same shallows, same posture. I have no idea whether they sleep standing up like that, or whether it's a different bird each night doing the same thing in the same spot. Look down at the water directly under us. It's shallow here and moving fast over stones, and the bridge lights catch it in a way that makes the surface look like it's boiling gently. It isn't. It's just going about its business, the way it has been the whole time we were up on the banks, watching everyone else. There's a vending machine at the far end of this bridge too, obviously. I stood on this bridge on my last night for a long time, and I remember thinking, with some surprise, that in 3 weeks, I hadn't once been inside any of the buildings I'd walked past every evening. Not one. one restaurant on a platform, not one bar in the alley. I'd spent the entire time outside, on a path, next to the water, watching a city do its evening. I didn't feel like I'd missed anything. I still don't. Further down, past where most people stop walking, the river gets shallower and wider, and the birds take over. Come along this stretch slowly with me. The embankment is lower here, and there are gravel bars in the middle of the river and reeds along the edges. The whole thing looks less engineered, more like a river that happens to be running through a city, rather than a river the city built a channel for. The herons are the ones you notice first. Gray ones, tall, standing in shallow water completely still for so long that you start to doubt they're alive. There are usually 3 or 4 along this stretch, well spaced, each with their own patch. They don't seem to acknowledge each other at all. I watched one catch something once. It happened so fast that I only registered it afterward. One moment standing, then a movement I couldn't follow, then standing again with something in its beak, then a long pause, then it swallowed and went back to being a statue. There are ducks too, dozens of them, mostly asleep on the gravel bars, with their heads turned back into their own feathers. A few paddling around in the dark for no obvious reason. Occasionally, one of them says something quietly, and another one answers. Listen for the cormorants if you're lucky. They're bigger and blacker, and they dive. You see one on the surface, and then it's gone. And you spend a while scanning the water, and it comes up somewhere you weren't looking, 30 meters away. There's something about a heron at midnight that I can't quite explain. It's a very ordinary bird, but standing in black water under a bridge light, motionless, in the middle of a city of 1.5 million people, it reads as something more deliberate than it probably is. The one from further upstream, the one I saw every night in the same shallows. I'd like to think it was the same bird. Statistically, it probably wasn't. Herons all look alike, and that stretch is good hunting. Feel how much darker it is out here. Fewer lamps, no restaurants, nothing lit on either bank for a couple 100 meters. Your eyes adjust, and the river turns from black into a very dark gray with texture in it. The walk back to where I was staying took about 20 minutes, inland, away from the river. Come with me. The streets are on a grid here. The whole city is. It was laid out that way over 1,000 years ago, and never really stopped being that way. So you can see a long way down each one, and they all look somewhat alike at night. Vending machines every block or so, glowing. Convenience stores, open, bright, mostly empty, a taxi waiting at a corner with its light on, and the driver asleep behind the wheel with the engine running. There's a canal along part of this route, narrow, concrete lined, water moving fast in the bottom of it. It comes down from the same hills as the river and gets used for something practical further along. I never found out what. Feel the difference in the air here, a few blocks from the water. Warmer, stiller. The river takes its cool with it. I passed a laundromat one night that was open and lit and had one person in it, waiting, phone in hand, at 1 a.m. That image has stayed with me more than most of the temples. The place I stayed was on the second floor above a shop that sold something I never identified, because it was always shut when I went out, and always shut when I came back. The room was small and traditional, and there was almost nothing in it. Come in with me. To Tommy on the floor. You take your shoes off at the door, obviously. But the thing nobody tells you is the smell. New to Tommy smells like dry grass and something faintly sweet, and the whole room holds it. The futon comes out of a cupboard and goes down on the floor, and that's the bed. It's firmer than you expect for about 2 nights, and then it isn't. There's a low window with a wooden frame that slides rather than opens outward. And if you leave it open a hand's width, which I did every night, the sounds come in from the street below. Come sit on the futon a minute before you lie down. I had a small conversation with the woman who ran the place on my last morning, in a mix of 2 languages and a lot of gesturing. She asked what I'd done while I was here, meaning temples, I think, meaning gardens. I said I mostly walked by the river. She looked at me for a second, like she was deciding whether I'd wasted my trip. Then she said, in English, carefully, "That is also good. I've thought about that a lot since." I don't think she was being polite. I think she meant that it was a legitimate way to have been in her city. Not the best way. Not the way she'd recommend, but a real one. Lie back now. The windows open a hand's width. The street below is empty. Somewhere further off, if the night is quiet enough, the river is still doing exactly what it was doing when we were standing next to it. I stayed out until morning once, not really on purpose. Come with me for the last part of that night, because the river does something at 5 a.m. that it doesn't do at any other hour. There's a mist. Not thick, not dramatic. A low layer sitting on the water, maybe half a meter deep, moving very slowly downstream with the current. It only forms when the night has cooled enough and the water is still holding the day's warmth, so you don't get it every night. I saw it exactly twice. the sky goes first. It's not sunrise yet, but the black turns to a deep blue that lets you see the shape of the hills again. And then the blue gets thinner, and then you can see the whole river without any lamps helping. The birds start before the light does. Crows first, which is unfortunate but true. Then everything else, all at once, from both banks and the hills behind. Listen for the first train. The private line east of the river starts running around 5, and after a whole night of no trains at all, the first one is unmistakable. A long, low sound arriving from somewhere and passing and thinning out. And after that, they come every few minutes, and you stop noticing them again. There are people out, not many. Someone sweeping the entrance of a shop with a bamboo broom, doing the whole width of the pavement in front of their building, which is apparently just what you do here. A delivery truck with its hazards on. 2 runners separately, both serious. The restaurant platforms are being put back together for the day. Or maybe just checked. I couldn't tell. Somebody up there with a cloth, wiping down rails. Feel how cold it is. Coldest hour of the whole 24, right before it starts warming. And I was underdressed for it, and completely happy anyway. I walked back at about 5:30, with the light coming up behind the eastern hills, past the same closed shop under my room, and slept until the afternoon. So that's the walk. We started where the 2 rivers meet and sat on grass that was still warm and listened to them refuse to become one sound. We came down past the empty stepping stones. We found the people sitting 6 meters apart, all evening, every evening, without anyone deciding it. We stood across from 30 lantern-lit platforms and watched the river break their light into pieces and put it back together. We crossed the busy bridge and listened to a guitar player who never once spoke to the crowd. We went into the meter-wide alley, and I opened one wrong door and closed it again. We walked south until the Weir was the only sound. We bought something warm from a machine glowing in a dark park. We went out in the rain and found the banks completely empty and stood under a bridge in a dry corridor with water falling on both sides of us. We crossed to the east bank where nothing was for us. We walked out past the last of the lights and watched the herons standing in black water, doing nothing for a very long time. We came back at midnight and found the crows had taken over. We stood on the low wooden bridge and looked north at a completely empty riverbank. And once, we stayed out until the mist came up off the water and the first train ran. And now you're here, in a small room that smells like dry grass, with a window open a hand's width. The river's still running. It'll be running in the morning when the platforms go back up. So let it all get quiet now. Let the river get quiet. Let the street get quiet. Let me get quiet too. If you're still awake, that's all right. There's nowhere you need to be. And if you left me somewhere back at the Weir, or the alley, or with the people sitting 6 meters apart, then you did exactly what I wanted you to do. Sleep well. I'll be here next time, somewhere else worth walking slowly through whenever you're ready. Good night.